There would have been people at the beginning saying, no, you cannibalize my audience.
NFL is a top tier in the US, but when NFL comes to Spain, you really need to take a very humble approach to try to conquer the market.
Everyone needs to understand their fan way more than people did 15 years ago.
But then you have all the properties that say, oh, okay, I saw what Formula One has done, I'm gonna do the same. And it doesn't really work.
Kings League, they can do what they want because they're starting from fresh. They don't have that legacy, so you can kind of create their own playbook.
Hello and welcome to the last episode of this second season of the Gameday Podcast. Today with Johnny Davis. My friend, thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me.
It's really a pleasure to have you. We know each other since a long time.
2019.
We've been in many different places, seeing each other in every single sport event.
Absolutely.
In the last few years. I really like the way you always have approached the industry and your ideas. And in the sport industry, I always say that it's an industry where you don't have that many people that are trying to change things. And you're definitely one of those executives that are trying to look at things in a different way, in a world where the traditional model seems to be under stress. And today we're going to talk a lot about that, about the work you're doing. But before, I always like to give my invites the opportunity to present themselves and tell us what have brought you here to the work you're doing now at Peak Performance. What did you start it?
Perfect. Right. Firstly, thank you very much. Kike has mentioned there that we have obviously seen each other in many different events. I think the last time you invited me to an event or to try something new, you invited me to play to box in your training gym. Right, so this is up to this today. This is a new experience for me, a new podcast. So I'm going to see what is more fun: 1 hour with Kike Levy punching me in the head, or 1 hour with Kike Levy asking me some questions about this industry that we do. So thank you for the opportunity, and I will let you know in an hour's time which is more fun.
Okay, we save that for the end of the podcast. That's going to be like the best thing to end this second season.
Right. Sounds good. Right, about me. Where to start? I guess. I think my career and my journey and my path to here I've now been living in Madrid for 6-7 years. As you know, we met in 2019. My career in sports business started, I guess, in Edinburgh when I went to university. I was very interested, keen to be a sports journalist. I think a lot of people that end up in this industry either come from that way or maybe finance very different, but always the constant of being passionate about sport, right?
Yeah.
So,
or like my case, a frustrated athlete.
Well,
you realize you don't have the talent and say, okay, I want to be connected with this.
Well, listen, you're about to turn pro in boxing, so let's see how it goes now. So basically, so I started off the career thinking I was going to be a sports journalist, to be honest. And then I got involved with the Scottish Rugby Union, and I don't know whether it was too many weekends, freezing cold, writing down notes on the side of a rugby field. I thought, I'm not sure I can handle this. And what I did, I got involved with Scottish Rugby Union, Edinburgh Rugby, really grateful to those guys. And I got involved in some projects that related more to the business side. And from that point, I was just fascinated by it. Upon finishing university, my time in Edinburgh, I then went down to London. Had an amazing, there was a before and after. I fell into a role which was at Perform Group, which now obviously has changed faces and shape over the last couple of years. Perform Group now is obviously then evolved into the DAZN Group, and then it split off and had various kind of iterations. I moved down, and it was just when we were beginning what was the space of running streaming platforms for multiple rights holders, looking into this space. It was a huge digital agency. The beautiful thing about it was we were trying to do so many things at once. So there was various elements. There was the element of streaming that we were providing. So big ones that I remember back in those days, we did live basketball TV, which is the first client of mine, which was around FIBA basketball. We then did stuff with tennis TV, which was working with ATP and WTA. We did stuff with Matchroom with some, so again, a real mix of contacts there. And at the same time, whilst you're thinking about that, other parts of the business were goal.com, which is the biggest website, the portal for sport, for football in the world, which was, again, a great thing that gave you an understanding of more of the advertising and the editorial side. If you add to that then Opta Stats, which was a huge, again, market leader for so many years in what was editorial stats, a fascinating company as well. Add to that the betting layer. Again, huge industry on its own. And there was different it was so many businesses under one roof. And that's why I think as a young professional starting your career, Perform Group in what is and DAZN, what it now it continues to be, is one of the most unbelievable places. It was like a grad scheme but on steroids, because there was no limits. You obviously had your day job, but there was so many fascinating projects going on that you could just gravitate towards and go and do different things. And I loved it. I took the opportunity. One of the focuses that I ended up leaning into, there was a project we just signed big global partnerships to do, to rethink both digital media distribution strategy, production strategy for WTA, long-term deal there, FIBA Media as well. And there was just a big project that ended up being a project that I kind of led in terms of from our side, which was I compiled a lot of the expertise that we had across the business and the bid around South American football, right? So at that time, CONMEBOL were looking for an international agency to help them get to the next level in terms of production standards, digital standards, sponsorship sales, and media sales, right? Amazing, beautiful project. It was so holistic. There were so many different elements to it. We came with our kind of angle on things. As things developed, we ended up in a joint venture with IMG, another fascinating experience because you get all of their experience, which in some instances was complementary to ours. Win the bid, and that is when, again, life changed very dramatically. I moved from what was a young Brit living in London, as many did on that kind of rat race, and to then having the opportunity to move out to South America, which was just came at a time in my life, and it was just perfect. So I grabbed it with everything that I had. I moved and lived in 2018 in Buenos Aires for 1 year. Lived and breathed the experience, South American experience. It is a beautiful continent which continues to have a real mark on my kind of persona. And as part of that, got to work on some unbelievable football projects. There is nothing like South American football passion. We got to see that firsthand, and we got to see and make changes on what was format. We changed the Copa Libertadores to two finals, a first leg and a second leg, to a single final. And again, so we're still seeing, I guess, some of the groundwork of the work that we set there in what we see today, and it was a much more sophisticated and advanced and developed product than it was certainly when we got involved in 2018. And sorry, then again, being a Brit, getting used to London life, getting dragged away from London life to then South America, Buenos Aires, is very difficult to go back.
Very different.
Very different, very difficult to go back. So when upon finishing that year, because it was always kind of like a secondment, I was always planning on coming back. I was fortunate to have a few other options on the table. And just at that time, Perform Group, which then had morphed into DAZN Group, was launching in Spain. And so I had the call, Jacopo Tonali, who I now work with at Peak, gave me a call and says, listen, you've just spent a year learning Spanish, albeit an Argentinian version of Spanish.
We accept it.
They accept, well, some more than others, but anyway, that's what it is. So yeah, 2019, just launching DAZN Spain. Would you like to come across and do rights acquisition, manage the rights holders? And again, came back to Madrid, fell in love with the city, fell in love with the work and the environment in DAZN. Unbelievable project. Did some absolutely fantastic things with some great people. We can dig into it a little bit later, but obviously that grew from something being an entrant to being what it is now in the Spanish market, which is very much key player, and DAZN in general. That is a story which is familiar across many territories. It's something which explosion, entrance, and really become a dominant feature to what is today. Certainly one of, if not the biggest sports broadcaster in the world. So an amazing story there, and an amazing journey. Super lucky to have that. That's when we met. And then when it came to a point of, when was it, a year and a half ago now. So DAZN, again, had become a hugely established business in Spain and multiple other territories, domestic rights for LaLiga, home of motorsport, and add to that as others. An opportunity came across to join some of my old guard, some of my old colleagues that I used to work with tightly and that were the leadership team in DAZN. So Simon Denyer and Jacopo and Bruno had this idea of a project to build what is now Peak Sports, which we'll get into it in a little bit more. But again, really interesting timing for that. And for me, it was a great opportunity to continue to stay in Spain. LaLiga was going to be a close client always, which was, having had the experience of both a domestic and international broadcaster, felt like I knew the house quite well. which was key. So now I continue that relationship. Now we work very closely with LaLiga, and 1 year on, here we are trying to bang the drum and trying to do some good work for as many people as we can. So here we are.
It's interesting how, and this is, the sport industry at the end is a very small industry.
Yeah.
And once you're in and you spend some years, you get to know most of the people that are inside, and you see that people move from one place to the other, but it's very endemic. Like, we are all the same people that go around, and when you go to events like, I don't know, World Football Summit or Sportel or Sports Pro here in Madrid, you always find the same people.
Same people, just a different name tag.
Yeah, exactly. But it's interesting how all these stories, relates to each other, because all the work you were mentioning with CONMEBOL and the joint venture with IMG and everything was what allowed me at my time at Meta to do the deal with CONMEBOL, where we got this free-to-air package for the first time. And we were broadcasting most of the Copa Libertadores game on Facebook in Latin America, in Brazil.
First of its kind, you were there as well.
I was there. So it's really interesting to see how, and at that time we didn't knew each other, and how everything interconnects in this.
One way or another, our stories intertwined. Yeah, we met one another in the DAZN launch party in 2019.
Yes, exactly. That was the time, and the disruption.
And you were at X, you were at Twitter. No,
I was at Meta.
Okay.
At that time, I was at Meta already. It was 2019. Yeah, I was at Meta. I left Twitter in 2017.
Okay.
And that was the time when.
Oh, sorry, of course, because CONMEBOL across the.
Exactly, that was the time where Meta was launching Facebook Watch, the video platform, and we had a huge budget to buy sports content. At the time we were like, the new rich kid in the
it's fun, right?
School.
It's fun.
In school, everyone wanted to come talk to us. Everyone thought that we were going to flood the market with money to continue this media rights business, because one thing you said from your time in Perform is that you were doing many different things. Yeah. And I think the industry in general has evolved from a single or main revenue source that was media rights to many different things. So
100%.
The business model is not anymore simple of, you just do your games, produce your game, distribute them with broadcaster, and you build everything essentially around media rights, to now you have to do a lot of things. Events, sponsorship, media rights deals for live content, highlights packages, repurposing multiple different ways. Yeah. And I think that's what you're trying to do a little bit differently of in Peak Media. So what are you doing right now with Peak?
Go 100%. And I it's a good segue, because I think what you said there is what's been amazing over the last couple of years. I think that the verticals of how money was made in the sports industry were narrow in the first couple of years. Things have fragmented because more monetization possibilities have been created. Of course, the digitalization has changed the world, and it's continuing to change the world. And in fact, I would say right now we're in a place where, as things fragmented and as things got kind of put into their verticals, you ended up having specialists that were dedicated to just one or two or three, and they were very much kept separate. But I think what we're seeing now is it's not good enough, but I think it's important as we think about the next couple of steps in the industry to not just think about your media strategy in isolation. You absolutely have to think about how that is affecting your advertising revenue, how that is affecting your engagement, how that is affecting your everything in terms of. So that's why it's in a really interesting space right now. Us at Peak, we effectively, again, we're sitting ourselves in a situation whereby, again, we are created by a lot of guys, the exec team from DAZN. So we kind of embody what is some great first-hand experience there from Perform years and kind of selling content, and then continue to in the global partnerships. DAZN side in terms of understanding the difficulties and the intricacy of making it work from the other side. We've added some fantastic talent from elsewhere across the industry as well. So effectively what we're trying to do is, knowing that the world is very much changing, and knowing that that change can not cause fear, but can be quite daunting for quite a lot of people if they're not ready to start changing the way they look at things. We're seeing ourselves in a situation where we want to go in and position ourselves as a growth partner to effectively rights holders, organizations, and think, okay, the next 10 years are going to be completely different from the previous 10 years.
Yeah.
Therefore, the way in which you need to start thinking about these things are going to need new creative solutions and different ways of thinking at. And so we're coupling, I guess, this experience that we had prior and a true belief, and let's talk about it in a minute in terms of who the new players are, who the new people that are ending up monetizing content. They all have different business models that are completely different. And I think what can be scary for some is if you think about new players coming on the block and thinking about just wiping everyone out. And I don't think really that's the case. And I think the way in which that we will continue to see this grow is, okay, there's new players on the block, but how can we allow them to enter? How can we find them an access point that makes sense for them, that maybe doesn't ruin what is an original business for existing players out there? I think the technology is going to do that. It's going to provide different monetization methods that we're not thinking about right now.
Absolutely.
But it's absolutely important to, and us as a growth partner, a key partner with LaLiga, and we're continuing to do, and we can get into some of the projects that we're doing for other rights holders out there, is exactly that, is knowing that every single one of these new players that come in is using data absolutely at the forefront. The one thing that doesn't really change, consumption definitely changes, but the fan and the number of fans is quite constant. That the efficient keeps as it is again so we're going to have to provide a level of detail and a level of analysis and sophisticated to do the work, to understand their business models, to understand how they can come in. What I think we saw, and one frustration from our side, was that relationship between seller or rights holder with their content, thinking, how do I distribute this to make as much revenue as possible, combined with who are your buyers, has changed entirely. And so I think previously it was a bit of a one size fits all. Yeah. And I think we just realized that you absolutely cannot continue to do that. You need to take the effort to put yourselves in the shoes of others, work and generate the models of business that could potentially work for these new players. Work also with your rights holder and partner to allow them to understand that, because having a discrepancy and a gap between what someone thinks their content is worth and what really someone is able to generate upon having their rights is a dangerous situation. So we're trying to bring that level of analysis and intelligence that certainly allows rights holders to be more informed at the hour of making their decisions around distribution. And then also from the other side, working with rather than against the people that are buying content as well. So in saying, okay, what is your model? Let us understand it a bit more. Well, the good thing is from our DAZN experience, we have a lot of understanding there. So we've been, building subscription economic models for a long time, and they continue to develop as things go on. But again, it's really important to speak the same language and adapt your discourse and adapt your approach here when thinking about distribution partnerships.
But it's not only thinking about what's the business model of your distribution partner, it's also understanding the way consumers and fans are consuming the content. I like to say that in a world where everything is personalized, today everything is personalized.
Yes.
Sport has one thing that makes it unique. It brings people together like nothing else does.
Absolutely.
It's the only content that it's consumed by appointment, that is consumed live in a world where everything is consumed on demand. But if you think about the consumption experience, it's very, as you said, one size fits all.
Yes.
And if I think about all the other entertainment experiences that I have in my day-to-day, all the experience is personalized. When I get into TikTok or YouTube, all the content I see there is personalized for me. When I go into Netflix and I see the recommendation, that's personalized to me. Even the advertising experience is personalized to me. If you think about sport, and if you think about traditional sponsorship model, there's no personalization. I mean, you buy Fly Emirates gets the front shirt of Real Madrid, the advertising experience is not personalized for every user, in everything. So I think the biggest opportunity we have as an industry is really how we can become better at personalizing the experiences to the fans.
I completely agree with that. And again, that example is what we mentioned before. Advancements in technology allows you to personalize, right? So that thing would have been unthinkable a couple of years ago. What you're saying now is definitely the way in which things are going. I also kind of wanted to pull something on what you said there in terms of, let's just think about, okay, what are the difficulties, or why is the ecosystem more difficult now? So think about, so the value chain there, so you have, start with the content. Right now, we're living in a world where, yes, sport is unique in that, in terms of the appointment of you is very special, unlike any other. But the reality is there is a huge proliferation of content. There is a huge mass of content in which we are all competing for eyeballs, ultimately. So you have a situation where the content, which is stage one there of the value chain, there's more of it than ever. Second thing is distribution. So the distribution side is obviously there's the ways in which we consume, the ways in which we are able to distribute content has changed entirely. The ways in which commercial models work, in terms of it's not as simple to just think about contracting via one pay TV, because the pay TV could then be carried by a telco or a different distributor. So again, there's much things. But then the one constant there is then the fan. So all of this, like in the value chain, it goes content, distribution, and the fan. The fan there, the great thing is going forward is people still love sport, and they will continue to love sport because it is unique and special. So if you add to what we've just said there, the proliferation of content, the more complex situation around distribution, that means that you as a rights holder have to think a little bit harder. Okay, so if I'm sitting in that situation, and also you have the additional layer, which is, okay, if we think about what were the main revenue drivers of the industry 10 years to what it is now, the majority were more traditional, were more linear. Now you have a situation where digital, whether that be either digital platforms that are charging subscription, digital platforms that are charging advertising, the lion's share of what is the revenue generation in the industry now is going digital, right? All of those new digital players require something very different to what the traditional players needed back then, right? So all these digital players, some of their leadership will come from finance backgrounds, and rightly so. We need to have a look at the data more because the data empowers us to understand, okay, if we are optimizing or maximizing what is the revenue or the value that we can provide there, what else can we be doing? Having a look closely at consumption to a different level that was not possible previously. Previously, the guys were just thinking about filling channels of content. Completely different situation now. So if you're thinking about that, you have more complex distribution, you have a huge amount of content. You as a rights holder, you're thinking, okay, how do I make myself stand out? Or how do I find a distribution strategy which allows me to navigate this slightly different ecosystem, but in a possible way? That cannot be thinking the way in which things have previously done. That has to be, okay, if new technology is going to allow, and new technology and new consumption methods are going to allow me to unearth different revenue streams or monetization, what can I be doing in terms of my distribution plan to allow me to attack those? So yes, everyone is thinking about Amazon, Disney, Netflix. Amazon, again, literally we're just sitting here, and a couple of days ago we had the provisional results of the Champions League tender, right? Yeah. Again, huge, so led by streamers in the majority of the 5 top markets there in Europe. But again, if you look at they are compatible. Yes, they were split into packages, but it's a good example of how Amazon will take a single package in multiple markets. Fair play, because they've been doing it for a number of years and they're fantastic at doing so. But they've only bought one match. But for them, that works fantastically because they can make their additional e-commerce work, and their business model is completely fueled by that. The other guys that are looking at that are really more dependent on generating and taking the base of subscribers that have a more subscription economics-led model, the likes of a DAZN, the likes of a Sky, the likes of a Paramount, that have really shaken the nest at the moment, depend more on having more volume, right? So again, it's a moving feast and a really, really fascinating time. And that's one example. There are 100 different examples, and I'd love to start touching about the digital side in terms of, we talk about the Casa TV example, which is a fascinating thing to touch on, which again, people need to take note. That was a very specific situation of what happens in Brazil, and we can go into a bit more detail around that. And they've done fantastically well. We're now taking note and thinking, okay, is that replicable in other markets, right?
Yeah, I'm sure it is replicable, and it's the content, how we mix the way people consume content outside sports and premium sport content. It's going to be one of the biggest opportunities also from the industry, and something that from our side we are also investing with the project we launched here in Spain with Cayo TV. But we are in a very, as you say, in a very fascinating time. I like to do comparison between the music industry and the sport industry, and I think the sport industry is living today what the music industry lived in the early 2000s. When Napster came out, suddenly the traditional model based on one single main revenue source, which was selling CDs, disappears from one day to the other because people want to consume content. They wanted to consume the content differently. It took the music industry 25 years to reach the same level of market revenue that they were making. They were making in the early 2000s. And it was very interesting because when you hear back in the days, you were hearing all the big music executives, they were saying, oh, piracy is the problem, piracy is the problem, piracy is the problem. Piracy, it's obviously a big problem for the sport industry, but it's not the only problem we have. It's more the challenge of how we understand all different moving pieces, because we're transitioning from a single revenue model to a multiple revenue model that we were discussing. Right?
So, totally, and I again enjoy the comparison. I do share it to a certain point. The only thing I would say is the piracy thing is I think without doubt the biggest threat to our industry right now, and I think all of the work that everyone in the industry is trying to do, and LaLiga doing an incredible job on this space. Which again is thinking, it's almost philanthropic, because they are thinking not just about and that's why I think LaLiga is so unique, because they get involved in things that are outside their realm of experience. Some of the joint ventures and the work that they do, whether that be in tech or anti-piracy, really impressive and amazing to see. Some of the work that they're doing there is going to be some of the most important work that anyone's doing in the industry right now in terms of content protection, right? I know but then leading back to what you were talking about from the music business, I agree we're going through an evolution. I don't think it's as drastic as what the music business listed, because I don't think for example, I don't think the revenue stream, the traditional one, is dying or going away at all. I think there are, across the world, there are pay TV businesses, there are free-to-air, whether it be commercial or government-led businesses, that will continue to function and provide a fantastic service, and they will continue to have really strong business and continue.
100%.
Right?
I don't think nothing gonna substitute the experience of TV. People say TV is dying. I don't think it's gonna die ever. I think it's an experience that is embedded. It's like, people say 10 years ago that radio was dying, and look now, all the things that you have around podcasts and radio is still very relevant.
Yes.
Medium of communication.
Totally. And I think, however, it is important to think that obviously we're always in the mode of how can we grow, how can we continue to grow, and how can we reach more fans? And yes, you do have these challenges that we mentioned earlier in terms of attention span, people deciding to pay or what to pay with the distribution complexity now that exists. The onus is now on us as the executives and the sports executives in the world think, okay, how are we going to navigate these? Because as we've just seen, for the big tier rights that effectively move subscribers or allow you to build an ad funded revenue or a model, your content's going to be good, right? In terms of you're going to continue to generate good value, and we're continuing to see positive outcomes. That being said, how do you grow? How do you think about this, the complementary mix and the necessary mix of players now? If, for example, you do not tick those two boxes of me being a top tier, me moving a million subscribers from one platform to another, or me moving millions of revenue in advertising from one to another, yeah, you're going to have a bit of a more difficult time to start thinking about, okay, what are my options to navigate and to move and be nimble. But the interesting thing for me is, again, new technology is bringing different monetization routes. And I think, funnily enough, in tier 2 and tier 3 and tier 4, these are the areas where most innovation happens, right?
And it is areas where more opportunity, where I think we're going to see more opportunities in the upcoming future. Because you say it right. If you think 10 years ago, a small league had to fight against the top tier to get some visibility and reach fans. Today, a small or mid-tier league, I don't think they can build a very big media business, because in my opinion, most of the media money is going to go to the top tier. But at the same time, they don't need the classic media distribution to reach the fans and grow the fan base, so they have the opportunity to monetize in different ways.
Totally. I completely agree. And again, because ultimately, at the hour of acquiring content, yes, people are looking more at data. Yes, people are becoming more conservative with their approaches, and yes, they are. There is less budget for the nice to haves nowadays, right? So there is even more. That's
a good quote. There's less budget for the nice to have.
But that saying,
it's true.
Nice to, how do you move that? How do you change that nice to have along the funnel to maturity of a property? I think your strategy always needs to be dependent on where are you in your growth trajectory as a rights holder of property. Yeah. It's going to be very, very different how you should approach a market if you are tier 1, huge hitter, and you're talking about hundreds of millions, to then someone that is early on in their growth trajectory that perhaps needs to focus more on eyeballs rather than immediate revenues. Because I think what we're also, again, I'll try and give you another phrase here for, which could be relevant. I think the entire industry in general should change from what definitely has been a more transactional relationship between buyer and seller to what should be collaborative, right? In terms of, because again, thinking about the sustainability and thinking about how people are going to find ways to navigate these changing factors in this ecosystem. Give you an example. In the last 10 years, if you ask someone who has been selling content, what has been your best, what has been the best deal of your career? No doubt they will think about a deal in which they think, oh, I got these guys to pay way more than their content is worth. What a great sale. On the other side, if you then think, say, right, what has been your best purchase of content? Surely the guy or girl will say, my best purchase was when I bought something super cheap and my ROI was unbelievable. Now, again, I'm not here to paint myself as Mother Teresa here. I think they're both right, and I think both cases are fantastic, and I would be the first one to shake their hand and celebrate that. All I'm saying is, right now, I think in the industry, I don't think that almost one-upmanship is necessarily healthy, because what happens after that cycle? If you're in a cycle where you've sold something to someone for way too much money, and you know it is going to be so difficult for your partner to then make that money back, they're not going to be in a great spot to renew those rights 3 or 4 years time down the line. So what's going to happen then? What's going to be much more healthy is if you can set a collaborative base in which you have two partners happy. You have the buyer that is happy because they know that the money that they've put down works because they're going to generate revenue, and the seller is happy because they know that they got decent value for what they are, and the fact that it is sustainable for their buyer is a really good thing, right? Mm. So I think, again, moving towards sustainable industry, and again, not trying to paint myself as too much of a saint, but I do think that is necessary right now. I think we're in a situation where we need to be less transactional and less kind of combative, and more collaborative in the way in which we think and the way in which we do deals. Go ahead. No,
and also be more aggressive on taking risk as an industry, because I think the sport industry in general is not an industry of innovator, of risk takers. Normally, when you go and talk and pitch something to a sport property, the first question you get asked is, okay, who has done this? Do you have any case study? Yeah. It's very hard to find that cohort of innovators that will help you reach. And traditionally, the sport industry has built their business in transferring the risk and the relationship with the fans to a third party.
Yeah.
If you think about the old media business, the traditional media business, it's I sell you the rights, I give you the content, you talk to the fans.
Yeah, totally. Yeah,
you do the production, you put the faces, the journalists, and I think that doesn't work anymore. You need to take the risk on the more and more on the relationship with the fan, and share the risk with the broadcaster or with your partners, no matter what business you're trying to build. And that includes media, but also sponsorship. It's not anymore, you pay me because I'm a big sport property. I give you huge visibility. No, now maybe we can set up a sponsorship deal where you pay me a fixed amount because you get the brand association, the visibility and everything. But then we're going to have an extra that depends on the performance and how I'm driving your business goal. You're going to pay me more or less.
Totally. And I like the way you've said it. And I think, again, that paints to a picture, a past in which it was very much hands off, sell the deal, and then think, right, it's your job to go and do that. I'm not going to worry about myself. But I think now you're seeing it already, definitely with LaLiga, very advanced in this and thinking about, okay, I want to know everything about my fan. I want to know everything about the consumption. Audiences are, of course, the absolute basic that you need. You need to know more. So, and that fits very much in line with what we at Peak Sport Media believe as well, right? We being fan-led is definitely no longer just, again, optional. It is an absolute, it's not aspirational, it's an absolute must-have. So from our side, one of the first things that we did, and this was led by a bit of frustration of lack of having that granular, robust data around fan insights and what people really is going to move the needle and what really people are going to get excited about, or how a TAM then turns into a willingness to pay, and then how that willingness to pay is not just a flat number, understand the scale. So we've put in a huge amount of work at the moment to develop Peak Fan Insights. And in that we do a huge coverage of the majority of global markets. We cover huge amount of properties. And it's a tool effectively that allows us to understand and develop greater what is a subscription economic model, to understand, okay, if I'm going to think about a portfolio build here, how many fans am I likely to get into my property? How much money what is the ARPU of each fan that I can get into? All of our analysis here, which is something that we provided we provide in all the analysis that we do with LaLiga and all that we do with other clients, which is an in-depth analysis of how much value do we think is out there based on fan understanding, fan insights. And then, of course, there are additional bells and whistles that you need to add on to that. But as a basis, everyone needs to understand their fan way more than people did 15 years ago.
Yeah, that's the key to success right now. If you don't understand your fan and you don't somehow control also your product, obviously, at the end of the day, if a broadcaster or a platform is paying a lot of money to distribute the content through the platform, they will add their personalization. Mm-hmm. Also, you need to adapt the content to all the different platforms. That's another thing that before, or another challenge that properties are facing today that they didn't face 10 years ago, because you had single business, single way of distribution, and you didn't have to think about, okay, what's my vertical shop for content strategy? Yeah. What's my strategy for stories? What's my strategy for YouTube, for the broadcaster? So now when you look at this platform, it's not anymore a single type of content. Yeah. It's multiple content format that you need to adapt to reach the right audience.
But that for me is the exciting bit, right? And that's again where the opportunity. We've said that every couple of years you will get new super bright guys thinking of different ways to monetize content, and that is a very different playbook than the playbook that we've used historically. So I think, and again, I think that is the exciting bit, because you will have people, you have the older guard or the traditional media businesses that may look at that and think, I want exclusivity, I want 100% of exclusivity here. Yeah. I do not want to let go of absolutely anything, nor clips, nor archive, nor whatever it might be, not any piece of content. But the reality is, and what we're seeing here, and again, it is, there's not a huge amount of difference, or these traditional media buyers may not be the best in the world at monetizing the clips. There may be someone out there that knows a little bit more how to monetize that. not in a way that is cannibalizing the business of what is that traditional media buyer. So call it a principal broadcaster, a pay TV or whoever that is. The reality is you can live in a much more diverse ecosystem. And I think people are starting to realize that now. So whereas things were very much closed off, I think we're starting to open up, and we'll start seeing a much more diverse distribution network, right? And which is necessary because we're seeing the ways in which people are consuming content are becoming so diverse. So you need to open your eyes to doing that. And I think the good news for some of the traditional guys is I don't think it's as scary a future as people might initially think. Everyone obviously fears the new and don't really understand what could be the new revenue coming in. But ultimately, if we are able to allow new people in and we were able to generate and continue to grow the ecosystem and continue to nutrir or give nutrition to what is the fan that is demanding content, ultimately it's a flywheel in a circle that should kind of self-fulfill, right? So if I have live rights, someone consuming clips is ultimately good to me because they're more likely to come back and watch the live. And I guess, one example of that, I guess, is what we, in a very traditional broadcaster scope, is one really fascinating piece of work and sales process that we did with LaLiga this year was in the UK, right? LaLiga in the UK.
Yeah.
So you've got what we've gone from there is a situation in which we had a house of a premium pay TV partner, Premier TV, who had been the incumbent last year. Fantastic partner. We're back at the table again, and we're continuing to want to continue with LaLiga. Great news. But we were also hearing and understanding that there was interest from other types of players that maybe didn't need everything that Premier TV needed, and maybe needed something smaller. And we tried to think of a way, and that was obviously Disney in this case, to see whether they could coexist. Right, so in the additional conversation with Disney, and it's a really fascinating, and there's some fantastic guys leading their strategy there, and it's going to get more and more fascinating over the next couple of years as they develop their acquisition, particularly in Europe. But some of the original conversations that we were having with them, we understood that, again, Disney, if you look in the UK, has a huge penetration, right? So they don't necessarily need to drive new subscribers onto their platform. They have a huge amount because the content that they already have there is fantastic, right? But what they really could do with, and how they were looking at the sport content at that time, was something that is what you said earlier, an appointment to view. That ensures that every week I'm going to get a number of my users onto the platform, consuming something regularly, rather than letting weeks and months go by. Because Disney, again, have an unbelievable library of content.
Yeah.
But what may well happen there is you might get people blitz watching something, and then they may let 2 months go by without touching it again. Then they'll get back into opening the platform, and that again creates a churn risk and whatnot. So the value there for Disney was something that could be an engagement play. What can allow me to? And again, I don't need the 10 matches at all, but I need something that is of decent enough quality to pique interest to create an appointment to view. So we were able to there find a way that was. So you had Premier on one side that had gone from 10. They could go down to 9, because really going down from 10 to 9 isn't really going to change your world in terms of the amount of subscribers that are going to sign up to your content. Which again is a difficult thing to get your head around when you first kind of thrown this concept. And on the other side, you're getting a partner that values the content in an entirely different way. They have no interest in generating the subscriber base that Premier have been able to guarantee there with LaLiga. They purely look at this as an engagement plan. So that is going to work in markets where you find the value or the value that you reduce from the principal package that are going from 10 to 9 is much smaller than the value that you create by creating another packet, which again all comes down to points of view and the ways in which different partners with different business models value content differently. So we were able to find a situation where Premier are happy with what they've got, fantastic, and Disney were able to come up, and then we were again able to create a positive outcome for LaLiga, grow the revenues again, purely because we were thinking slightly outside the box in terms of there are different profiles of bidder here. How can we find a way that they can actually coexist together and live harmoniously? And I think that again is an example of what is likely to happen in a number of markets.
It's understanding, it's just what you said before, it's understanding what's the business model of your partner, understand
100%.
and build a partnership for the benefits both sides of the table. And it's not about trying to extract the maximum value possible, leaving small room for the other side to really benefit from it. One of the first examples that for me was eye-opening when we were doing the Champions League deal with UEFA in Latin America. I remember the most watched Facebook Live broadcast has been and still holds the record with, I think it had a peak of 7.5 million concurrent viewers at some point. I don't remember the exact figure, but it was incredible. It was the final between PSG and Bayern Munich.
Okay.
And that was broadcast on Facebook in Brazil, and it was broadcast on Sport TV, the pay TV channel owned by Globo. It was a record-breaking broadcast for Globo, and it was record-breaking broadcast for Facebook.
Okay,
so it happened at the same time. So it's exactly what you said. You have audiences that consume content in a way, you have audiences that consume content in another way, and they're completely complementary.
Awesome example, love it. And again, so there would have been people at the beginning saying, no, you're going to cannibalize my audience. And look at what's happened. And again, we can point then to the guys in Brazil doing similar kind of work around, whether that be FIFA World Cup or the Olympics, or following content that has since followed. Gameday TV has been able to, because their distribution method serves an entirely different demographic, an entirely different audience than that on a pay TV or a free-to-air traditional on Globo. So again, similar thing happened with going from one World Cup to the following World Cup, in terms of one World Cup just with Globo exclusively, another World Cup in a situation with Globo plus and others plus Gameday TV, new records, and again, no cannibalization. Yeah. So again, but you're only going to be willing to do that if you have a positive outlook on how things are going, and you're not trying to control too much of the terrain, because ultimately we can't control these things. We have to kind of trust that there are different distribution methods that can coexist and serve different people, and ultimately
and also different. What I think it's very important is that you also have different playbooks.
Yes,
because now I think Formula One has been one of the best examples of a property changing their strategy and kind of activating that virtuous cycle and that flywheel you were talking about. Because if you think about the strategy at the Ecclestone era, it was everything about, everything exclusive for broadcaster. Yeah. We shouldn't allow anyone to share the content. Drivers are not allowed to post any content. Suddenly, Liberty Media comes in, change completely the strategy, start open up, sharing clips on social media, the Netflix partnership, a lot of things, changing, and that business has grown massively, and the media business of Formula One has grown massively in the last years. But then you have all the properties that say, okay, I saw what Formula One has done, I'm going to do the same. Okay. And it doesn't really work because, Drive to Survive, excellent format, but you cannot try to replicate that with other sports. And if you think about, same people, same, I think, and I'm thinking about other titles from the same production company trying to replicate that Drive to Survive model with tennis or with golf, with Full Swing, or with Six Nations.
Yeah.
Yes, there was successful partnership and successful content format, but they didn't have the impact that Drive to Survive had, because I think that was a very unique moment and it explodes. So the playbook also needs to change. There's not one, going back to what we said before, it's not one size fits all.
Yes.
Not the Formula One playbook is not going to work for everyone.
Totally. And again,
you need to adapt.
And again, what you said there, timing was fantastic. Yes, execution was great as well, but there was a huge amount of momentum that went from one to another. And again, they did fantastically well in creating a product that was created to interest people that had no idea about Formula One, right? And they were able to create this kind of adversarial kind of and create profiles and kind of rivalries and arch nemesis and whatever out of the team principles and what. So again, fantastic execution there. Bit of luck, sure, but again, you got to roll the momentum. And now what they've just signed in terms of the the Apple deal in the US is credit to that. Really rolling in a time now in terms of big Hollywood premiere, big Formula One, Brad Pitt, and again, let's push this as far as we can go, because people cannot get enough of Formula One in the US right now, and fantastic. All hats off to them. But you're right, it's not going to work for everyone.
It's not going to work for everyone, and I think when you look at people in the industry in general, it's like, oh, someone did that, it worked, we're going to do the same. It doesn't really work like that. Like you really need to need to find your spot, and things that may work for you doesn't work for anyone. Also because it's not only, and I think sports, especially top tier sport properties, have sometimes a kind of a very arrogant approach.
Okay, yeah.
Because they consider themselves top tier, but top tier property in Spain is not a top tier property in Italy or in the US.
Yeah.
When NFL comes to Spain, yes, NFL is a top tier in the US, but here you really need to take a very humble approach to try to conquer the market.
Yeah, totally. No, I completely agree. And all right, thinking about that, and there's something that you mentioned previously in terms of Formula One, and then there being a shift in terms of drivers all of a sudden started getting involved in that distribution of content. And there was again, when there was previously just one distributor of content, that like network of distribution has changed and the entire ecosystem has become more rich. That's something that you and I have spoken about loads and loads, which is again, the being an athlete-led, which I think is a fascinating angle, and one that obviously the NBA and the American sports have lent into for so long and have had such great success with that, in terms of taking advantage of the fact that there is some global superstars here that can continue to be patrons for their sport and carry them on. And there are people that even transcend sport, but that can carry the message, and ultimately it all helps with the flywheel, which is something that if you are, again, very traditional and very closed, and maybe are used to things being a bit more closed, and you're used to giving all of the rights to certain partners, that may scare you. And it's very difficult to course correct, which is where, again, that kind of model, I think we're going to start seeing more and more. I know you've got an interesting case study of that and an example of something that you're working on there, but I think that is something that is difficult for the top tier to start introducing now. Amazing opportunity for lower tier. Right? Because again, they don't have the legacy or the kind of straitjacket that success can kind of sometimes give you, right? In terms of having too successful of a legacy or a past can make you resistant to want to change. And again, you mentioned something there, was we're in a moment where people need to take more risks. I agree, but it needs to be calculated. I agree in taking risks, but it needs to be calculated. And it's difficult to throw the towel in on a business that have been providing you hundreds of millions once to go completely and fully back. I think, yes, go risky and be open to new angles. If you can see that if it's worth it, right? So if your existing structure is no longer going to support you, or if you know that you need to do something, otherwise it might have to be drip fed in.
I think you go back to the example that we were doing before, and the parallelism with the music industry. Yeah. The music industry was completely disrupted from one day to the other.
Yes.
And you say before, here the traditional model will still coexist with the new ways of looking at the content. I think the lower properties will drive and will drive that innovation in the model, and top properties will follow as they see new models coming up. Especially because when the deals come to an end and they need to renew and they need to think about the new right cycle, they will, with the examples that we've seen in the lower properties, they will take that to their partners and try to build similar models. Where you say, with the example you made with LaLiga in the UK, it's exactly. And also the UK is a very interesting market from a football perspective, and we've seen also Bundesliga doing really interesting things there.
Yeah.
Because how you conquer a market that is, we agree, great football market, UK, but it has such a strong football tradition that is it's very hard to crack.
Yeah. No, listen, it absolutely is. And there's been so much focus on investment on a couple of key properties, right? In terms of you need to, again, be open to considering different models because, again, you cannot take the playbook of Premier League and adopt it and go to the UK with a tier 2, 3 or 4 property and expect it to work. Yeah. You need to come at it humbly. Again, it's what we said before. Tier 3 and 4 is where real innovation happens. Right,
and where we're going to see the most growth.
Totally, and again, which is why we see things coming up like I say tier 4 or those which are completely startups, right? So we've seen unbelievable growth in the likes of again entertainment properties like Kings League, Ballers League, whatever. They're opening in a space where they can do what they want because they're starting from fresh. They don't have that legacy, so you can kind of create their own playbook. Which is absolutely the right way to start looking at these things.
One of the best case studies for me that I'm more fascinated about is Power Slap.
Yes.
I mean, building a league out of just
it's another Dana
slaps.
White one,
I think it's amazing. But when you look at the numbers, it's mind blowing. Like they generate millions and millions and millions of views.
Okay, right, true, absolutely. But who's going to subscribe for it? Therefore, the playbook for that is different. You know that it's going to get a huge amount of views on social.
But it's owned by TKO. But you see there TKO with UFC, WWA, and Power Slap playing different playbooks in each property, and
that is the key.
And that's the key. It's the flexibility to say, okay, I have a property that goes to one audience and speak to one cohort of people, and a property where I can build a business model that is completely different to what you will do with USC. If you take Power Slap and apply the same playbook that TKO made in USC, probably it won't work.
100%. And again, I'd take that to 11 in terms of so applying that to what we're trying to do at Peak is our approach is yes, let's think of different ways to do it. But to be able to do that, you need to then speak to the potential distribution partners, right? In terms of really get a great understanding of what are they trying to achieve? What's going to be their difficulties in the next 5-10 years? What kind of businesses are they going to build and what is going to be valuable to them, right? So again, one size fits all does not work. You need to go and you need to, again, collaborate more, that it's no longer a negotiation where it's just like, here's my content, I want 5% more, please. You need to go and say, right, what are you working on? Is there data that I can provide you that can help? So again, our approach to this is very much, we're using the intelligence that we have there from Fan Insights in terms of understanding their fan behavior. Can we provide them with things that allow them and that assist them in their acquisition decision, right? And so that for us is the basis of everything that we do, right? Putting yourselves in their shoes, and then again, upon getting that knowledge, reporting back to what is the right owner and telling them the strategy there. Otherwise, it doesn't work.
Yeah, I think it's ultimately is taking the values of sports, of team value, team play, and play as a team with your future partners, with your agencies that are working with you.
Totally.
Otherwise,
and I'd say one more thing actually. So, and everything that we've spoken about up until now has been around the sales process, so the pre-sale stuff, so that negotiation and the relationship that you have with someone before you even talk about the acquisition or get into a relationship with someone. So like collaboration there. Beyond the signing of the contract, you need to collaborate even more.
That's where work starts.
Exactly.
That's where work really starts.
100%. So it's one of those that again I think previously, and again what we spoke about, some of those in terms of washing their hands after doing a deal and then saying, right, let's chat again in 3 years. Does not work anymore. You need to be having a regular health check of what is your fandom, your following, your sport in C, so that you can understand, okay, how is there anything more I can be doing to allow my partner to achieve his goals, right? Because ultimately you want a positive relationship and you want in 3 years' time it to be a no-brainer for both sides, right? You don't want to be in a situation where we spoke about earlier that after a 3 or 4 or 5 year cycle, your partner is thinking, oof, that was hard work. Mate, that was hard work getting value out of that. Let's leave it. because then you've all of a sudden got one less person in the competitive landscape that you were hoping to create at every time you produce a sale. So collaboration before, yes, but post, even more so. Weekly, monthly, it needs to be constant. You need to understand what your audience is, your engagement is, and why, and can you be doing more?
Yeah, more than ever, it's about building a team with your partners and create that partnership ecosystem.
100%.
Johnny, this has been a fascinating conversation. Thank you so much for making the time. And now you have to answer the question: am I harder as an interviewer or in the boxing ring?
I've enjoyed this a little bit more. That said, it's brilliant at the boxing. Fair play to you. But yeah, I'll take this one over the boxing, getting punched in the head.
Okay, man. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.